You're not going to believe the weird, wild, and amazing things I found when going through my old video game magazine collection from the early 80s. From trippy art to wacky gizmos to Bambi. That's right, Bambi. I'll let you know all the details this week on It's All Dug in Games. Hey folks, it's Doug from It's All Dug in Games. As I said in the intro, I went through my old video game magazine collection recently, most notably Electronic Games Magazine. It's a third-party magazine that came out in the 80s. I looked at some 1983 issues, and boy, were the advertisements in there something special, a real treat. So I picked out a few I want to share with you today. And let's get started right here with the Family Arcade, folks. Before the arcade one-ups were a thing, way before, decades before, you had the Family Arcade, and they didn't sell you an arcade cabinet. It wasn't like you sent them a check and an arcade machine showed up in the mail. No. They sold you plans to build your own arcade video game enclosure. That's right. For just $9.95 per set, you could get layouts and cutting drawings that says with less than $50 worth of parts or your local hardware store, you too could build your own arcade cabinet. Now, I can just imagine being a parent of little Billy in 1983 and finding out that he's sent away for these, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, little Billy's just playing some Atari in his room. But then I open it up and I see all sorts of wood shavings and tools and levels, and little Billy's operating a circular saw right on his bed. I'm building my own arcade. Now I've only got 4 fingers. Times were really crazy back then, I gotta tell you. Hey, speaking of really weird, trippy things, our next ad is really cool. This is for, of course, something that did actually come out. It was a real thing. Mattel Electronics in their advertisement for Burger Time, everyone's favorite burger creating game. This was for the Intellivision version of Burger Time, and this image in this ad will haunt me for the rest of my days. And this came out, 1983. I was 10 years old. So it's been haunting me for 4 decades now. And as you look at this, you could probably understand why. So here we have clearly 2 eggs, 3 hot dogs, and a pickle, all of which are ridiculously fake. I mean, we're talking IKEA department store level fake hot dogs here. And clearly, they were either launched or thrown or somehow became sentient and decided to take flight and chase after this poor chef, who in turn is just trying to ferry around a 150-pound piece of bread over his head, running away from it. And all I can think about is, it's 1983. What drugs were you taking? That's right, it was 1983. What drugs weren't they taking? That's the better question. Nancy Reagan had barely come up with the idea yet for kids just say no. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Nancy Reagan was checking out what the latest video games were in Electronic Games Magazine, saw this ad, and realized we all really needed to lay off the cocaine. So this perhaps is a very important piece of not only video game history, but people history as well. So remember, to beat our new home video game, you've got to move your buns. And let's move our buns to the next ad. Another ad with a food theme, but this time the food isn't the video game. The food is the food. That's right, it's Donkey Kong cereal by Ralston Purina. You'll remember, we've talked about Ralston Purina before in the past. That was the company that felt the overwhelming burning need to create their own Atari 2600 game, Chase the Chuckwagon. So that's right, the same folks that brought you the Chase the Chuckwagon video game felt the need to make kids cereal licensed from Donkey Kong. And of course, keep in mind now, in 1983, Nintendo hadn't yet completely conquered the world in terms of the video game sphere, so this was one of their early licensing deals where they didn't quite have the sterling reputation they had now. So you know what? Does the Chase the Chuckwagon guys want some cereal? You got it. Let's do it. Donkey Kong cereal. And I'll tell you what, I was 10 years old. Again, like I said earlier, in 1983, I had Donkey Kong cereal. My parents felt that Donkey Kong cereal fit, apparently, on the food pyramid. It was proper nutrition for me. And so I enjoyed a few boxes of that. And here's the spoiler. If you didn't have Donkey Kong cereal, it was really just a ripoff of Captain Crunch. Donkey Kong cereal was just a clone, a bootleg, if you will, of Captain Crunch, clearly formulated to be a little bit more in the shape of barrels. But, I mean, there you go. I'm sure there must have been some threats of litigation between the Captain Crunch and the Donkey Kong, but perhaps that's a story for another episode. Nonetheless, fantastic ad, and it brings back fantastic memories of the early formation of type 2 diabetes for yours truly. So there we go. A good time had by all. And speaking of good times had by all, who wouldn't have a good time with Bambi? That's right. Well, hold on. Let's not go and get too salacious or be a little bit too wildly inappropriate. Somebody at Simple Simon Electronic Kits Incorporated, based out of course, Las Vegas, Nevada, had come up with an electronic device that lets you connect all of your different video game systems, home computers, to a single TV. But they realized that is probably the most boring accessory you could probably advertise in electronic gaming or the other magazines. So what are you going to call it? You know, the Switch-O-Rama 6000? No, you're going to call it Bambi, and you're going to get an attractive lady wearing, by what was 1983 fashion, a sexy outfit, and Bambi is going to be holding up, well, the titular character, her Bambi, and you're going to get excited about it. Because let's face it, folks, their own marketing is very clear. And I don't put your mind in the gutter here. I'm just basically paraphrasing. Your TV only has one input. You've got all the different video game systems. You need Bambi. Bambi has 6 inputs. And so, I mean, who wouldn't want that, right? So there you go. It's right there in the ad, folks. I'm not trying to be naughty here. I'm just explaining what it says here. $129.95. You too can have Bambi in all 6 of her inputs, delightfully performing all sorts of video magic and gymnastics and outputting whatever your little heart desires. Of course, you don't even have to take Bambi to see your parents for dinner. It's wonderful, a great situation. I'm sure somebody out there in my audience has had Bambi, so please let me know in the comments what your experience was in your relationship in the early 80s with, of course, Bambi. Now, finally, before we go, this one was kind of cool. This advertisement, it was interesting to me because a lot of people seem to think that the whole craze of reselling video games is something recent or something that came along with the YouTube era or content creators. And here's the thing. No. Reselling has been a thing as long as video games have existed. So it's 1983. There's no internet yet. There's no eBay. There's no Facebook Marketplace. There's no whatnot. But there's an ad in the back of Electronic Games Magazine. Make big money, sell video game cartridges. Students, kids, trying to rope kids into being video game resellers. So apparently, they're selling a special dealer kit for just $4.95 with all the details about how you too can be a scummy reseller. And probably hip check grandmas at yard sales, just like that. You can get your games cheap, sell them big money. Now, it is interesting. I wish I could go back in time and find out what the plan was, because where exactly are you, is little Billy, age 9, reselling these video games? You don't have your own store, and there's no internet. I'm kind of curious about that. I'm also curious, is this proof of time travel? Is it possible that Phoenix Resale is actually a time traveler and a few decades back was hustling plans to resell video games under the guise of Games Clearinghouse, Department A, Bolton, Massachusetts? I don't know. Look, not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just asking questions. That's all. Just asking questions. And with that, I think we can all ask a few questions of ourselves. Did you enjoy taking this little walk through the weird, wild ads of video game magazines in the early 80s? I thought it was pretty cool. Please let me know in the comments if you thought this was fun and interesting. Folks, as always, Thank you for watching. I hope you had a good time. Please like and subscribe. You know the drill. And we'll see you next time on It's All Dug in Games.